Happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. Um, I'm so glad you can be here today. This is the first of my second season of Authentically Debz. And as my listeners know, the first season was my life story. So it was completely serial, episodic from birth to now. Um, my second season is interview format, and so it's all very exciting. Um, my first guest, and again, I'm very fortunate because my first guest is my friend, but he has also been willing to come on to my podcast and talk about his new book, which is A Fly on the Wall: The Discovered Journals of Heinz Lenz, who was the valet to Adolf Hitler, and it's volume one. So, welcome, Dr. Marvin Winitsky.
Hello, hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, as always. Um, Before we kind of jump into things, I just wanted you to kind of get a sense of what I got when I read it, and then we really will jump into things.
Hmm.
Um, okay, the novel just really blew me away. And I almost have a hard time calling it a novel because it is fiction. I'm going to say it is historical fiction, and you can get into more of that later. But it it feels like nonfiction. Um, and as we all know, there's so many books written about Hitler. Some good, some bad. There's films, movies. This one was just mind blowing. Um, I also want to say that it's just amazing on a lot of levels. Um, this is a book, and I'm not going to do all the talking, Marvin. I promise. Um, but
I
it's a
promise.
book. It's a book about Adolf Hitler's private valet, his first butler. I mean, and it it has great wit, it has cleverness, it even has some humor, without, and this is the amazing part, without diminishing the horrors that we all know came from Hitler's Third Reich. Um, I will tell you that initially it was a bit intimidating for me because it is a lengthy book, and once I got into it, again, um, just my knowing Dr. Winitsky and knowing his brilliance with literature and also his amazing vocabulary. His style was so smooth and so disciplined as he is, and the exposition was so linear. And again, the word choice was so precise. As a matter of fact, especially reading his book, reading your book, but even when speaking with you, I think it's a very good thing to have a thesaurus at my side, or at least have my phone ready to Google, because your vocabulary is, in context, it's very easy to read, but your vocabulary is just mind blowing. So the book was mind blowing. Um, but what it became like for me was like skating on glass to the far side. Isn't that an interesting way of putting it? Because I don't know how to ice skate and I could fall, but the book itself kept me upright. And it was just really an adventure. And that's when I thought, okay, I'm willing to believe this is fiction only because it's so adventurous. Uh, I'm going to shut up right now. Uh,
Well,
Bottom line,
I was just going to interrupt you by saying that
please.
that skating on glass is a lot better than skating on ice because the worst that can happen is you can cut yourself, but you don't drown.
There you go. I hadn't considered that in that little phrase. Okay. Um, so, again, welcome, Dr. Marvin Winitsky, and your wonderful book, A Fly on the Wall. And it's, again, the discovered journals of
Heinz
the,
Linga.
pardon?
Heinz Linga.
Heinz Linga. See, I pronounced it wrong. Heinz Linga, the discovered journals of Heinz Linga, who again was the valet to Adolf Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome. And just
Thank
before
you.
we kind of dig in, tell us anything you'd like to about your book.
Well, I'd rather respond to questions, but there is one thing that I wanted to correct for the
Okay.
record. Uh, when you mentioned at the beginning that there have been so many books about Hitler, uh, I would remind anyone listening that I agree, there have been so many, almost too many. But unlike those, this is not about Hitler. And that's
That's
something
true.
that distinguishes it from virtually, if not actually, all of the books about Hitler. This is about his valet or his valet, however you want to pronounce it. I'll use valet to go along with you. It's just the
Whatever.
English. It's just the English way of pronouncing it, and I use the English pronunciation throughout. So valet will be fine.
Okay.
Thing is, it's about the valet. It's not about Hitler. So you're seeing everything through the valet's eyes and ears. In a sense, if anyone out there, including you, have ever seen Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Still Dead,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's really not about Hamlet. It's Hamlet seen through two absolutely subsidiary characters out in the wings. Um, it isn't
I,
the character itself, but it's how you see the character. And my character, if it happens to be Hitler, is being seen through his valet, who is an extremely special person, according to me. I've made him special.
you have made him special. Indeed.
He was far from special in reality. That's the fictional part.
Okay. All right. Um, I, and again, please interrupt me at any time because I'm excited about this book. And I was also reading a few of your blogs, and um, I saw in one of them where, and I know you can get into this all later and you can just say, stop, I'll take it from here. But
Sure.
um, you gave somewhat of a synopsis
Mm-hmm.
of your book to the reader, which was which was very helpful to me, both before and during and after the read. Um, that
Well, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's very controversial. I mean, not the way you say it, but a synopsis to me is a controversial item. Um, I'm a big fan of Turner Classic Movies, the show,
Okay.
not always the
Okay.
movies, but the show itself. And one of the hallmarks of the hosts is giving a synopsis of the film before you see it. And unfortunately, these characters have a habit of telling you the entire movie before you see it. And it becomes not only annoying, it becomes downright objectionable. Uh, where if they're showing Psycho, the host will say, "Oh, and you'll love the shower scene where," uh, well, so much for that movie. Uh, when I did it,
You watch more Turner classic movies than I do, but I had no idea
I watch a
they
lot of
gave
them,
they
and
gave that much
they
away.
seem to want to tell you the entire movie, and then they have you see it, which is to me superfluous at that point. Um, when I do a synopsis, it has to give the flavor of the story and some of the basic elements without telling you what actually happens, because where's the suspense? Where's the page turner aspect of things? Why turn the page if you already know what's going to happen next, or you know his motivation for something?
Okay. Okay.
And so, I don't want this to become a discussion of literature generally, but it really does apply here. I mean, I was inspired to write this by two books that I had read. One is Remains of the Day,
Yes.
which was made into a pretty good movie. Um,
Was
and
that
very,
also a book?
yeah, well, it was originally a book.
Okay.
Um, and they made a pretty decent movie of it.
They did.
And then the other book was, what's the name of it? Oh my.
Well,
Um,
I
yeah, I
know
have
you.
it. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Uh, this is very book thief. The book thief.
The Book Thief. Okay, I
Right.
remember reading that from a blog also. Okay, tell me
And
about that.
well, first of all, the book thief is an extremely interesting stylistic portrayal of something. Um, it has humor, pathos, horror, and yet he's able to walk the many tightropes of those things with incredible ease. And I was rather inspired by that technique, even
Okay.
though it's not necessarily linear as mine is. A journal, if it's not linear, what good is it? So by the journal format, I was locked into linear.
And
Um,
that's where you got the journal format from
no,
his
I got
book.
it from Remains of the Day, which is semi-journal format.
Okay.
But it's what I would call a flashback journal.
Okay.
You have present day, and he's recounting in linear detail from the beginning of his story to where he is at the beginning of his narration.
Okay.
But it
I
is
want,
linear.
yes. And I want to say one thing. This is just sort of an aside, but
Hmm.
myself being an actor,
Yeah.
as well as a podcaster, I tend to think of a synopsis is what I'm using in lieu of a treatment of a screenplay. And again, like you say, you don't want to give it all away, but you do. The way I'm looking at a synopsis, you do want to excite the would-be reader or or whoever you're presenting it to. And to me, your synopsis did that. Um, it basically told me a little about Linga's character. That he has a photographic memory, and the real Linga was very mundane. I
Well,
mean,
what you raise a good issue, and I should address it because I did mention Remains of the Day.
yes,
The inspiration for for me was how the character of Stevens, the butler, the equivalent of the valet for my purposes, um, is portrayed in that book and in that movie. Um, he was selfless to the point of non-existence.
yes,
He
I would
lived for the
agree.
job. His father's dying upstairs, but he has to serve dinner and he won't even go up there to check. His father's already dead by the time he finishes dinner and gets up there. Duty is everything. He has no existence. All life is for his employer, who happens
Who
to be
happens
a
to be a, like you
Nazi
mentioned,
sympathizer,
exactly. Yeah.
which he couldn't care less about because the politics or anything about his employer, short of the amount of distance between knife and fork, has no interest for him.
Okay,
Uh,
I agree.
Yeah, so here you have a completely selfless person. And at the end, I asked myself, because I've seen it many times. I mean, it's almost a hypnotic film for me. I asked myself, well, what if he were interested? What if he had an actual personality? What if Stevens hated Nazism? What if he hated being a butler? What if he hated all the things he had to do and give up the Jewish children that this person his boss had taken in and giving them up to a horrible fate? What if he cared deeply about this? And I said to myself, given his character in the book, there's nothing he could do. He's a butler. He's not going to sit down and have chats with the boss about his point of view. He'd have to either quit because he couldn't stand what the boss is doing, or he'd just sublimate and pretty much act as if he didn't have any personality, which is exactly what happened in the book itself.
And he ended up losing basically his
Well, he
life.
lost his life. He lost
He
his
did.
life. He had no life. He lost anything he could have had as an actual human being.
So that was
Fabulous butler.
that was
Yeah,
what first kind
yeah.
of
Because I said to him, I said, what if he were different? Would it make
right.
any difference?
I noticed that you also mentioned another book that I haven't read, and again, you didn't have any great things to say about necessarily, but I was Hitler's Maid by someone named Pauline Kohler.
Kohler. Well, that's controversial because there are many who don't believe that book was even done. It was
Okay.
supposed to be nonfiction, and there are people who said that it was a concoction, a lurid retelling
And
of
again, I haven't
her
read it.
story.
But the reason I mention it is because you mentioned in one of your blogs that she had mentioned a character named Heinz Linge.
Well, he was
And
the actual valet to Hitler.
okay,
He
so
was his
that much
valet.
is true. That much is true.
Yeah, well, I'll go on from those two movies and two books. Once I got interested in that character, the Stevens character.
There was your butler.
Well, he was a butler, but I never heard of Linga. I never heard of him. But somebody, for some reason, knew I was interested in Hitler and said, "Oh, you should read that series that this publishing company uh, developed by interviewing all the people, all of his servants who were left, who actually made it into old age, and like his secretary and his valet and his pilot and his chauffeur." So what happened is this publishing company sent someone to interview all of these people who are still around, including Linga. And that
Okay.
was one of the books that was sent to me. And the minute I read this, the first thing that I thought of was Stevens. This is a guy, you don't learn a thing about him. It's a very short book. It's maybe really 120 pages without
So what do you learn
footnotes.
about from him? Hitler?
I learned more about Hitler than I learned about Linga,
Okay.
which made me even more inspired. Uh, I said, I'm going to create this character, and I'm going to go Stevens, my own interpretation of Stevens, one better. I'm going to make Linga influential.
Wow.
That's the
That's the book I
Stevens
read.
could not have been. He didn't have the wherewithal to be influential to his boss, Lord Darlington. But I
I
was going to do that. And if I had to do it by magic, literally by magic, I was going to do it
and you did
because
it.
Linga had unparalleled access to Hitler.
Access. And the way it started was like, why was he even chosen? Uh,
Exactly. Here's where, I've been asked this before. I said, well, what is the genre? Because everything seems to need whoa, everything seems to need a genre, a niche where it fits. If
Tell
it
me
doesn't,
about it.
yeah. So, how does a character actor become a star? I mean, once didn't want it to be typecast as pure historical fiction or
That's what I want to hear about. Yes.
so when I was asked, well, what genre does this fit, or where does this fit into literature? I said, well, I think the term they use now is genre bending.
I like that term.
It involves a lot of genres. Depends on which one you're more interested in than another. It has,
I think I'm
oh,
going to
it,
steal
it
that.
has,
Yes.
it has magical realism. That's where the occult comes in. How do you think that Linga has such influence over someone like Hitler?
Mm-hmm.
Not like Jeeves and Worcester, but like Hitler and Linga. It has espionage, it has intrigue, it has psychological drama, the occult, um, abnormal psychology.
Right. And again, going back to your synopsis, that's what you told us about, which didn't tell us the whole book. It just interested me, making me
Well, the
want
thing
to read
is,
it.
everyone touts, including Hitler himself, his genius. That that he wasn't really a genius in art; he was a genius in politics and
Boy,
in
was
mass
he.
and in mass influence. And there's no denying it. What I'm claiming is, and I can give this away.
Oh, good.
Uh, I won't get on TCM this way, but I'll do it. He was Linga himself was a genius. He didn't realize it himself. All he did realize is that he is different than other people.
Mm-hmm.
Very naive, very self-effacing because he had no education, raised
Mm-hmm.
on the streets, uh, had horrible parents who both died in a fire. Um, so he lived mainly from doorway to doorway, alley to alley, jail to jail, until he became a bricklayer's apprentice. And from that, because he quit, and why he quit is something for the reader to get. I'm not going to
Okay.
give away why he
Okay.
quit being a bricklayer's apprentice, aside from the glamour of the job.
Oh, yes.
Um, he goes to an interview for a valet job with Hitler, not expecting to get it at all. I mean, he's sitting in a row in the hallway with 100 people, and he's the only one taken in and hired without an interview. Now, how can that be?
Uh,
Read
because
it
he's a
and find out.
genius. Uh,
Well,
I
maybe
mean, we
some
get little
people,
inklings of that.
maybe there are people who know what he's like and have been following him all along without him knowing it.
And that could certainly have been just
So,
from the way you, just from the book. Hitler had complete control over everything. I've never seen anything or read anything like that and been so close to what I know it must have been like. Um, and for your character, for Linga to have somehow ventured out from that
mhm.
is almost magical. I mean, he would he would almost have to be a genius.
Well, the whole idea of bringing the occult in, um, sometimes some movies are criticized because somehow you have problems all the way through, and then magically it's resolved. A Deus ex machina. Um, there's nothing wrong with that if it fits the kind of story it is. If you have magic, if you have magic realism in Die Hard, um, it's silly. The movie's silly enough without magic realism. Although his being able to out jump explosions, would have Superman running for his life. But in my story, the occult figures so prominently from a very beginning, first as mysterious and then gradually as an integral part of the story itself,
Yeah,
that you
speaking
you
of
expect
gender,
this
yes. Speaking of gender bending, there's a part of
genre
this.
bending.
There's a part of this that's almost like fantasy. I mean, um, and it's just that part, uh, the adventures that Linga goes on during the course of this volume
Hmm.
one. Um, I'd like to get your take on a couple of things that, um, because to me, what you tried to do in your book, or what you did accomplish in the book, um, reminded me of the Man in the High Tower, uh, Philip
Ah,
K. Dick's thing. And again,
brilliant.
you're being much more of a reader than I am. Um, I saw the Man in the High Tower,
Hmm.
and I'd like to hear a little comment on that. Is that something
Okay.
like what you were trying to do?
Oh, I am so happy you mentioned that. What you're doing, in a sense, is getting into the subject of alternative fiction,
Yes,
alternative
yes.
history. It's called alternative history,
Okay, I wanted to hear
and
you say that. I was
I'm in
waiting
that
for it.
organization, alternative history organization.
Okay.
And one of the reasons I've been disappointed with it is the man in the high tower syndrome. I'll explain. Again, not TCM like, but just tantalizingly enough to
Please.
generate interest. The problem with a lot of historical alternative fiction, I'll call it alternative history, is that it's grandiose. What would happen if China had had taken over Africa in the 14th century? What would have happened if Lincoln had not been assassinated? What would have happened if Moses hadn't parted the Red Sea? What if, and all of these grandiose, world changing events happened. And the Man in the High Tower is typical of that kind of thing. Japan and Germany take over
Yeah,
America. Japan takes over the West Coast, and basically that's what the story is about. It's not really about Germany. It's about the Japanese control of a third or half of the United States.
right.
That's huge. Um, Perhaps my imagination isn't as grand as that, but I don't believe that alternative history has to be grandiose. Um, what I tried to do, and I think this makes it a little more plausible to a reader, makes it more historically accurate, is to leave events the way they happened. Not that Germany wins. It loses. It loses the same way it lost before. Not one building is left standing that wouldn't have been standing otherwise.
That's what's so
The
gender
difference,
bending about this book. Uh,
the
that you do.
difference is serious to me. That my alternative history is motive and the way something happens. Hitler made several mistakes in the course between 1939 and 1945.
Yes.
He, I mean, there have been book forever about Hitler's mistakes. What were his mistakes? He did this instead of that. He should have done this, but he didn't do this. He did something else. My alternative history is giving a reason for that. And my reason is Linga.
Okay, okay. Because
You
this first
see?
volume only takes us up to 1939.
Right.
So Linga
He's
continues
just
on.
settling in. He's just
Oh my
settling in and
goodness.
getting the lay of the land and figuring out who's who and what's what.
Okay, so when do we get volume two
By
of A
the end of
Fly
the
on the
year, I
Wall?
hope. By the
Oh,
end of the year,
great.
I hope. Two is just in the editing stage right now.
Well, that means it's quite close, right?
Yes, and I'm a third of the way through volume three, the last volume, which
That
takes
will
us
be the
to
last volume.
1945.
So somehow during Linga's, with his machinations, he actually affects what
Well,
happens.
it isn't a not only. He directly and indirectly influences Hitler to make the mistakes that will eventually cause Germany to lose the war.
That's fascinating.
However, not for the reason that anyone would think. He
It's
doesn't
even
do
more
it out of,
fascinating.
he doesn't do it out of humanism. He does it out of patriotism, way before any of the assassination attempts. And one thing he will not ever do is harm Hitler. He wants Germany defeated without defeating Hitler. An amazing feat.
Because, because,
That is volume three.
okay,
Because
okay,
is volume three.
okay.
And it comes from, but I will give a hint. It comes from his earliest upbringing.
Linga's earliest
Yes.
upbringing.
How he
Okay.
became an orphan.
So, in a way, jumping way ahead of volume two, even, we're going to flash back perhaps in volume three.
No, 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 no. It
No?
goes all the way to the end. And but all these reminiscences, he talks to himself a lot.
Okay, okay. That's what I meant. Yeah.
And we get flashbacks in many cases through his current ruminations. Remember, his memory is infallible. And so he can recount something that happened when he was 2.5 years old.
Could that alone, well, no, that couldn't alone be his genius with what he accomplishes.
No, it's his ability to strategize, his use of the occult once he learns that Hitler is guided by it, and those around him, like Himmler, even have their own astrologers.
You are aware that so many people are going to think this is true
I
because
wouldn't
there's so
mind. I
many
wouldn't mind.
uh, good um,
See, it's his
because
when you have someone where the history is identical. I mean, D-Day is not going to start on the 8th of June. I mean, the way alternative history would have it. Gee, what if D-Day never happened? That kind of thing. No, it's going to be the 6th of June. But how Hitler reacts to it, what he does, is going to be based on what my character has fed him, because he has unlimited access to him more than anyone else in the entire world. My character lives with him in the same room with him.
well, I was beginning to think that as I was reading volume one that I don't think I've ever read anything like this. You know, that seems so nonfiction. It seems so historical. Um,
That's
and yet
because I keep it historical. Like
that's because you keep it
the
historical.
the historicism is maintained. Um, there are conversations that Hitler has with people that are completely fabricated by me, but the result you can see in the history books. Um,
My
motive
God.
motive is the issue in my history. The how of things. I took a course in journalism many years ago. I
Hmm.
won't even tell how many. But he said any good story should have who, what, when, where, why, and how. Try to find one news article that has all those in it. Try to find a book that has all those in it. My point is that the why and the how become, for me, the most important things in the story. The what is in the history books.
Yeah,
And
you
so
don't
that's what
touch
makes
that.
it look accurate,
Oh, yes.
is the
That's
fact that the what and the where and the when are maintained throughout. But
can
the how and the why are altered to fit my story.
can you think of another book like this? I
Nope.
mean, I'm not just asking you that to compliment you. I'm just asking you.
I'm not that well read,
That's not true. That's
but
not true.
well, I
Can't
mean,
be true.
let's say as well read as I am, I haven't,
Okay. Well, I certainly haven't, but that's
and
why I asked
especially
you.
the ones you mentioned, the like Man on the High Tower,
And
um, that
just
that changes everything. I mean, that's who, what, when, where, why, and how writ large. He changes it all. He changes it all.
so, and I indulge me. I have to mention once more Philip Roth's A Plot Against America.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? I mean, same.
Well, he's assuming an event. He's assuming events that
Yes.
never happened.
Right.
In my story, the events did happen.
So I
It's
guess
only the motive behind the events that differ.
oh, so
For
different than those. So different.
for example, if if Roth, instead of having Lindbergh become president,
Instead of
let's
FDR.
say that Roosevelt became president, which he did, but his closest advisor told him to attack Germany in 1939, despite the isolationism in America.
That would be more like a fly on the wall. I mean, the way it's done.
That would be more like it, but even so, it wouldn't be historically accurate because we didn't.
That's
We only
true.
did it after
That's
the
true.
Japanese attack.
That's what I mean.
So
Yeah.
even then, you're skipping the facts of history.
Which I cannot imagine you're doing, but I cannot imagine this book either. And that's why I encourage everyone
Well,
to check it out.
but that's the great point you're making. I love your point. Uh, if people knew what was going to happen, even though the dates and the places and the names remain the same, uh, what's there to what's keeping me turning pages?
Your
Uh,
character. Your
yeah, because
character.
they want to know one, since things aren't happening for the same reason. I want to know, number one, what the reasons are and how did those reasons play out.
And they make sense.
Again, given the
Kudos.
occult, given magical realism, they do make sense. They have to make sense within the context that I create. I mean, if you have a straight story like Grapes of Wrath, and you have Tom Joad learning, becoming an angel and flying away at the end of the story, that would be ridiculous. It would be absolutely
I think
ridiculous.
so.
I mean, Disney would run at the sight of that. Um, so
Oh
I
God.
wanted to. Something has to be plausible within the boundaries of what you create. Once you create Hitler as subject to the occult, it's not a stretch to have my character use the occult to influence Hitler. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And
I do.
that's what I want people to turn pages to find out how and why.
And they
That's what the
will.
story is. It's
They
not the
will.
what. We all know the what.
There was not a question about that. That's
Right.
what leads the person to think they're going on a journey that has happened and they're just finding out why, which makes one think that it's almost nonfiction,
Yeah.
but it isn't.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at my all of my wonderful questions, and I think we've covered a lot of them. Okay, here's one we haven't covered.
Hmm.
What would you say to those that might argue that your book or your character is too
Hmm.
soft on Hitler?
Um, I would say that
I'm
that
not even
was.
sure that's a.
Oh no, it's a, it's a, it's the kind of question that I was afraid of when I was writing it. It's not an outlandish question at all. There are those who believe that Hitler was in on every single negative thing that ever happened to anybody in Germany and the occupied territories.
Yes.
He personally signed this. He personally viewed this film about the Holocaust and all of that. One of the things I tried to do, and this is a tightrope, I tried to keep Hitler responsible without being active. Now, you
The
can
book
do
lends
all.
itself to that, at least volume one. It
Well,
lends
what's
itself to
interesting,
that.
I was just, it was interesting. I was just viewing a movie called Valkyrie.
Yes, I was
And
going to
it's been
mention
on a
that as
lot. It's
well.
been on a lot. I mean, people who don't know about it or it's a historically based thing ananyway.
And I was
Uh,
trying to decide or trying to find if that was ever a book, but it seems it was a screenplay.
yeah, but it was interesting, miscast, I think, but that's beside the point. Uh, to me, it was interesting that von Stauffenberg, who is now leading the plot to assassinate Hitler, has to get Hitler to sign something in order to have it be his decision to occupy Berlin after he's killed without knowing he's signing it. So hand him they hand him this document, and Hitler, because he's very perfunctory about such things, signs it. So now they have the document they need. Hitler's satisfied, and yet nothing eventually comes of it because he's not assassinated. The point is, Hitler couldn't, wouldn't, and shouldn't be involved in every aspect of what happened in Germany. Um, much of what I do with Hitler is I make him the equivalent of what's the name in Beckett. Um, who was the king in Beckett? Um, doesn't matter. The king
The
and
king.
Beckett are friends, childhood friends, and the king, wanting a supporter, makes his friend the Archbishop of Canterbury. But unfortunately, the new archbishop gets religion and starts doing things that the king doesn't like, and to the point where he could be responsible for the destruction of his monarchy. And so the king is with his advisors, his henchmen, and the king is just exasperated. He's just pacing and yelling and all this. Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest? No, he didn't sign any death warrant. He didn't say, Phil, go kill this guy. or make a plan and finish this guy off. He's real trouble to me. What he did was make a general statement. Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest? That's my model for Hitler.
All right.
Won't someone rid me of these meddlesome Jews? And guess who listened in? Himmler, who couldn't wait.
Oh.
See, so what I'm saying is his henchmen, the fastidious men, I call them, are the ones who picked up in accordance with the Fuhrer's wishes. That's a
So to
phrase
speak. Yes.
that's a phrase I use often in there. All this was done in accordance with the Fuhrer's wishes. The Fuhrer is responsible, yet he did not personally partake of every single horror that took place. That's controversial. I will not deny it. So let it be. You know, there's an old comedian who used to say, if I offend you, tell your friends.
um,
Uh, I'm
it's
willing
just
to risk that.
good. Good. Um,
I'm glad you asked that because it is something that won't be taken lightly if someone who cares reads this the way I wrote it.
mhm. There was one other question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
You've written screenplays. This is your first novel,
Uh-huh.
which is frankly hard to believe uh, because of how good it is.
Well, I did write a novel. I didn't bother to submit it. I will. People ask me what will I do after volume three. As I will revisit that and try to get it published.
Okay.
So I did write. I mean, the difference between a writer and an author, to me, is a writer writes and an author publishes.
Well,
uh,
yes.
and and so far, I've been a writer, not a publisher, not
Um,
an author. So that's to answer your question. I did do other stuff. I'm not completely a novice.
oh, I
I just want to revisit that and with what I've learned since
which
then.
I'm sure you should because now I'm ready for volume two of not that yet, but of A
Hmm.
Fly on the Wall. Um, you mentioned the difference between a writer and an author. Isn't that the
Hmm.
way you put it?
Right.
Um, Again, indulge me. Do you have any concerns about being able to get this amazing book out to the reading public?
Well, sure. I'm an unknown. I didn't graduate from the writer's workshop with five mentors behind me. Um, I don't have a relative in the business. Um, I don't have a lot of those contacts and Rolodexes and all those kinds of things working for me.
I
So
just like to
I'm
throw in
basic.
here, I can relate. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. We're together for a reason. Uh, the thing for me is that the book came out at all. Um, it's online.
It's
It,
on
it,
Amazon.
it's on Amazon. You can find it on Instagram. You can find it by
Really?
putting my name into Google. Uh, you know, putting Hitler, since it's not about Hitler, you won't really find it. Put Linga in, whom nobody knows. In fact, Linga, I think, is more anonymous than I am,
But they
which
will.
is saying something.
They will know it.
Uh, so
Uh,
everything is online, but the problem with having a life online is one where if they don't know your name, they have nothing to put in to get your book. They're not going to find out about this book unless they know you. And that's not going to happen by being online. Just being online is the end product. Advertisement outside of the internet, a billboard on Sunset Boulevard, the side of the whole side of a building.
And what are those billboards about? Those billboards are about films. And that just makes me,
But they do
that's
have
the,
some books on them. A Stephen King novel can get the
okay,
side of a
okay,
building. If
okay.
you have a big enough name.
Because they know it's eventually going to be a film.
Yeah, Dan Brown or Stephen King, Michael Connolly. There are some names where the name is above the title of the book,
That's true.
where
Well,
you have to actually search for the title of the book because the name of the author is so prominent.
exactly,
Well,
exactly.
that's what I need in order to get people to find me on the internet. They
Well,
won't find me if they don't know my name, and they won't know my name by intuition or the occult.
well, we've said your name a few
Or maybe
times.
the occult.
We're going to put your name not only at the bottom of this podcast, but also on my Facebook and my Instagram and my YouTube. And this is so embarrassing. Um, I loaned. Where is it? And I shouldn't have done this because I knew I had this podcast coming up. But I'm
Sure.
so excuse me, I dropped something.
No, I'm used to you jumping around.
I know, I know. I I'm so glad you put up with me. Um,
Put up with you. How dare you? How dare you
uh,
say that? I don't put up
this
with
is
you.
what I
I look
have to
forward to
show
you.
people. This is what I have to show people just right now for your book because I loaned this to a person whose name will remain nameless. But
As will I.
uh, but I will say that if you uh, this book is for sale on Amazon. Um, on Facebook, you will see the beautiful colored cover
Hmm.
of it. Um, and I will also throw in at this point that when you loan a book, I have finally learned that you are giving that book away. You may not know you're giving that book away, but if I get the book back tomorrow, it didn't help me. I needed it today. Um, okay. I think that's all the questions. And again, Dr. Marvin, I just want to thank you for coming on. Oh, I have to say one more thing.
Sure.
I see your book, your wonderful book, and I've only read volume one. I see this as an epic drama. I see this as a film. And
Well, you
I know you're a
probably,
screenwriter.
but you probably gathered from this conversation so far that I'm fairly cinematically oriented. Um, I really live through movies more than books, even. Um,
Yes, you do.
I don't have a visual sense to the point where I could actually make a film, but I sure see the cinematic possibilities and things, and I write for that. I write with people. I cast as I write. A lot of people do that. Um, I mean, I have an entire cast. Unfortunately, they're
Do
all
you
dead by now.
really? Do you
Um,
really?
yeah, I cast the whole thing before I write because I need to see them in front of me when
That
I'm writing.
that's very important for many reasons. I mean,
And
certainly for
and
actors. Yes,
so for me, I saw this as a miniseries, a multiple season miniseries,
I
and
can see that.
in fact, a journal, to my way of thinking, lends itself to that more than almost any other form. You can cluster the dates, you can stretch it, you can eliminate, you can add scenes.
And
Each date, in a
and
sense, is a scene.
and we could go for seasons with this. Although
At
I
least
will tell
three.
oh
At least three.
at least three. Although I will tell you initially, it struck me as an epic, but maybe I
It's
mean
only 10 years. Isn't that funny? It may be epic, but it only covers a 10-year period.
Oh, it's an epic, but I'm not even sure it could all come in one film. Uh,
No, that's why a miniseries, not a
okay,
limited miniseries, a miniseries could cover it properly done.
okay.
Properly
Um,
done. I've seen these. I've seen these. They can be done, and they can be done well.
yes. Um, Rather than getting this to the publisher of your choice, could you not present this to producers, showrunners,
I can't
directors?
produce it to anyone. I sent it to an actor. I figure what is the best way to get something done when you're a nobody? You pick out an actor that you desperately want for a particular part that you feel would kill for this part if presented properly. Um, and I got his contact email and I sent it to him. I sent him the synopsis. I sent him all the things that you were reading from. I got a response from someone else. God, I wish I could. I
His
had it at hand.
agent, maybe?
Well, I wish I had it at hand because it never
Me
even got to
too.
him. They say due to the volume of requests and what have you, he has a moat. He said if a legitimate producer wants to contact
Well, that's
us,
why I mentioned the producers.
yeah, but you
Uh,
can't. The producers have moats. Everyone has a moat now. No, no, no,
well,
no. Let's not have this discussion. Get this off the record, okay? Because I don't want to get to the. I've tried all the traditional methods of doing it, aside from saving, pushing a producer in front of a car and then saving him, and then he can reward
you've
me with
tried with
a.
producers.
I have tried with producers, agents, actors, publishing companies. I've tried with them all,
Well,
and
you
you
haven't
don't
found the right
ever.
one. And I'm not saying, and I hear everything you're saying, but you just haven't found the right one. And
I can't just spend my life sending out. This isn't like Charles Bukowski, who just had 30,000 of his poems in envelopes and just threw them into the into into a mailbox and just prayed to have somebody read them. Uh,
and
I
they
can't.
did.
I'd have to hire someone to represent me in order to do that. I'd need my own moat in order to get somebody to do this. And sure, there could well be some off the wall publishing house, agent,
I
producer,
wasn't really
actor.
thinking of that. And I know we're thinking of The Man in the High Castle, that kind of thing. That's not.
Well, Philip K. Dick's books have been made into every movie he's ever done.
I'm just asking you,
He's famous.
have you contacted the producer of that?
I am no,
Because
I haven't
well, that's what.
contacted
Okay, we won't get into this like you said.
because
But
if I had the prominence of Philip K. Dick, who did Blade Runner, who did all kinds of stuff, virtually everything he's Alien, everything he's done has been made into a movie. Uh, if I had, I mean, it isn't like Philip K. Dick sent something over to this producer and said, "Hey, produce a movie."
they're looking for original new content.
I
They
agree.
are.
The point is for
Um,
me to function and to get anything done, I need someone to publicize me. Now, if publicizing me is sending stuff to 8,000 targeted
I'm not talking about
producers,
8,000.
one producer, I don't care, one, 1,000, it doesn't matter. It has to be the right one. If it's a producer, a director, an actor, an agent, what have you, it has to be the right one. So it has to be as mass and targeted as possible. I am not,
I
I
would say
don't,
targeted. I would not agree with you with
yeah,
that.
but targeted, there's so many
But you
out there.
watch a lot of streaming, a lot of premium. You watch a lot of it. You, God knows, you read a lot of it. Um, you
There
could.
is, all right.
I know, I know, I
I'm
know.
finding this burdensome to
Okay,
almost
I'm
the
so
anger
sorry.
point,
All
because
right.
I've butted my head against these moats with everybody I've tried to send it to. You can target just so much. When you start hitting these brick walls of people who say, who write you, if they're good enough to write you back and say that we appreciate your sending us this thing. While it looks interesting, we are not prepared, able, whatever.
They haven't
Uh,
read it. They haven't read it.
then they want, yeah, but how can I can't
Well,
sit
I
in
don't know.
front
That's
of
why
them
I was
and
talking
I
about
can't tape
treatment.
their eyelids open. I'd love to, with staples.
I was just
Um,
talking about a treatment of some sort. Since you're
I
afraid.
can't be bothered with that now. I have to finish
Okay.
volume 3. I
Okay.
can't devote my life to sales, which is not my thing. I need a salesman. This is the kind of thing I was telling you week after week after week. I need a master salesman to get my name out there. Once my name is out there, it will be noticed by people who know about Philip K. Dick or Philip Roth,
I
these
hope
kinds of people,
I
and
hope
it'll
this
bypass the moat.
I hope this helps. But I will say we're going to talk about the book because that's where the greatness um, lies.
Sure.
And I just one more thing before you
Yeah.
slap me. Um, I
Yes.
think I know how you feel about social media, but
I love it. I
you
love
love
it.
it. You love
I
social
love it.
media.
It's just not a way in. It's
Okay. Are
it's
you
not a way
familiar?
in. Once
Well,
once they know you, like for you example, an example, you could have a podcast with 2 million followers or 2 followers. Now, if you have 2 million followers, my name is known by enough people that they'll find me. If you have 2 followers, my name is not going to get you 2 million followers.
that's true. And
So I love the
regardless of
internet.
how many followers we get from today, this has been a great podcast. Um, Marvin, Dr. Marvin, are you familiar with Clubhouse?
Am I what?
Are you familiar with Clubhouse?
Not by that name. I don't know.
The new social media.
Oh, I
Um,
don't use it. I like it. I don't use it. I'm
oh,
not adept.
but you're familiar with it.
No, I'm familiar
Okay.
with social media. I'm not familiar with that one you mentioned.
Okay, well, this is the newest one. I invite you to Clubhouse should give me something for this. I I
I'm
invite
writing it
you
down. I'm writing it down.
I
Clubhouse. Okay.
I invite you to at least go in there because that's where you are, I believe, and I need to do it too, mo- more likely to meet those people beyond the moat. There are higher ups. What I hate that word, higher ups. There are celebrities in there. There are showrunners in there. There are people that want to, you know, people that want their material
Right.
recognized. They are supposedly begging for new content now. Check out Clubhouse.
Yeah, we'll test their level of begging.
Yes.
No denying that.
Okay. Well,
Um, no,
I
I absolutely will.
please.
You have my word,
Um,
and
had
I
we
thank you
talked,
for the reference.
had we talked again, I was going to mention that to you. Um,
Yeah.
I like Clubhouse. I haven't had a lot of time to spend on it, and I haven't found exactly what I'm looking for. But the concept of Clubhouse is is innumerable groups that you can start your own group or you can join a group, and you can comment to anyone in that group.
Yeah, I'm going to have to learn how to use it,
Yeah,
which is
I think
fine,
you
which is
might.
fine.
I think you might like it more than say Instagram or Facebook. It's different.
Well,
Um,
I need access,
yes,
and people need access to me, and they're not going
exactly,
to get access to me unless they know me. So that's the whole point. They
exactly.
got to know me. They're not going to know me through Hitler or Linga or anything else. They're going to have to know me, period,
Well, to know you
so
is
they
to
can put
be
my name in.
fascinated by you. I mean, to know you is to be fascinated.
I hope so
So
and not
just
repelled.
that it's just true.
And
Um,
by the way, in I am there's an interesting thing if people really want to know. I hate the title of this because it sounds very contrived and market oriented. But there's a thing called, and this is all one word, marvinwinitzky.com/press hyphen inquiries hyphen and hyphen media hyphen kit. That has about me. It has about the book. It has about how to get to me.
okay,
Um,
I was just about to mention because I think Zoom is going to cut us off soon. I was just about to mention, are there any ways that you would like for people to reach you? Because there's going to be questions, there's
well,
going to be comments.
aside from knowing my name, which would be enough because I put my own name in and it comes up. My thing comes up.
Hmm.
It's just the key is putting my name in.
And I'm
So
going
they
to
have
have
to
your
know my
name.
name.
I'm going to have
Any
your
other
name
way
in this
would
too.
just be putting in Heinz Linga.
Heinz Linga, and
Right.
the link that you just mentioned.
No, this will have that link just gets all of my materials.
Okay,
A
well
lot of the
that's
stuff that you have.
do you want to repeat that link again?
Yeah.
And
Um,
I can add it. I will add that
well, I
link if
wish
you'll
you'd
send
write
it
it
to me.
down because it's hard to
All right, send
to
it to me.
say.
Send it to
Okay,
me,
it's
and
I'll say
no
it to you.
email, no email that you have created for this
Well,
type of thing.
yeah. If you put in author Marvin Winitsky,
Okay.
I have another podcast, and it's not it's not a rival podcast. It's that Desiree Duffy. Uh, you can find that podcast at Desiree at blackchateauenterprises.com.
What if someone wants to ask Dr. Marvin Winitsky a question?
Ask me.
Yes.
All of those websites that get me will have a way to
A
reach
way.
me.
Okay.
Contact me.
Okay.
But if they put in www.marvinwinitzky.com, that thing with the press kit that I gave you, and that's how to get me.
Is that also a
I'm
web
also on Instagram under author Marvin Winitsky.
as well as Facebook?
Facebook, Instagram.
Okay. And you will soon be on Clubhouse, hopefully. Um,
I will check it out as soon as we're off.
good, good. Um,
Yeah,
all right.
I
So
thank you.
remember that you can buy this book on Amazon. Um, and
In
you mentioned
Kindle and hardcover form. You can get
okay,
it in all its formats,
okay. Um,
incarnations.
all right. And this has just been wonderful. This has been like talking to you, Marvin.
Well, that's why I wanted the picture. I'm much
Uh,
better than if there were no video as well as audio.
and if someone wants to watch it another way, wants to see us, they can see us on my YouTube channel, which is Deborah Jan Gray,
Brilliant,
and they can see a repeat of this. So
super.
promise you'll come back before, if not after, Volume 2 is out.
I can come back in 15 minutes.
Okay, I can probably come back in an hour. Okay.
No, you may have to do some heavy editing because of the craziness of what I've been saying and how I've
None
been
of it's
saying it.
been crazy. It's been you, and you're not crazy.
You know, but you're not,
You're
well,
brilliant.
it's not your standard format by any means,
It ain't
whatever that is.
boring. That's I think one of the things we're looking for.
Well, you're the podcaster. If you're happy with it, I cannot deny my own happiness.
Okay. I love you. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Okay, I'm happy to have been with you and look
See you
forward to
soon.
doing it again. Okay, bye-bye.